hello there. Good morning and welcome to Rising. Thanks so much for joining us on this special news show of ours. Nice to see you, Lindsay.
You didn't speak in Spanish today. What happened? You left me hanging. I thought I was going to hear a little bit more.
Time is
Como
just
está?
compressing, and I was like, did I do that yesterday? Did I do that weeks ago? I don't know. Where am I? What's going on?
I think because it's so dreary, which we've been telling people about in D.C.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is in the rest of the country who's watching, but it's very rainy and overcast, probably because of the bad weather near North Carolina.
Yeah.
We need that sunshine so we can bring,
I think I said.
Oh, look, that's a live look at the Outer Banks, so you guys can see.
That looks dreary.
Yeah.
Actually, it looks kind of
peaceful.
haunting and romantic. I'd like to be on that.
Maybe you can have your wedding there.
Boardwalk.
Well, coming up on Rising, I'll be discussing how Steve Bannon is giving Gavin Newsom props for his Trump-style trolling.
Plus, a new reporting indicates that Elon Musk might not follow through on a third party after all.
And President Trump's latest comments on the Smithsonian Museum has caused outrage among those on the left. But first, Robby, what is on your radar?
There are a few women, more important in the conservative media ecosystem than Megyn Kelly. The former Fox News host has her own podcast empire, and she's among the most influential pro-Trump voices in independent media. Though initially combative with Trump while previously serving as a host at Fox, Kelly's become an ideologically reliable enforcer and promoter of pro-Trump views, particularly on cultural issues. On foreign policy, well, she's an ardent defender of Israel and the U.S.'s special relationship with that country. So it really means something when even Megyn Kelly is sounding less than enthusiastic about what Israel is doing in Gaza, about the level of financial support the U.S. is supplying to Israel, and also the amount of influence the Israel lobby exerts on the U.S. government. Now, on her show this week, she invited Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene to discuss AIPAC, the pro-Israel group, and the sway it holds over other members of Congress. Like Kelly, MTG's MAGA credentials are unimpeachable. She's one of Trump's most reliable backers, and she believes in America first. But MTG questions whether reflexively supporting everything the Israeli government does is actually in America's best interest. She also resents the level of influence that AIPAC seems to exercise over her colleagues. Here's MTG explaining it to Kelly.
Israel is the only country I know of that has some sort of incredible influence and control over nearly every single one of my colleagues. And it is, I don't know how to explain it.
I mean, I believe it just given the amount of reach out I've had in this position. And I don't vote on anything,
Yeah.
And if I had taken money, I could see them really thinking that they had a right to control my speech or, my positions, which is why I never have, of course.
Elsewhere in the interview, Kelly does plenty of throat clearing. She says she's always supported Israel's right to defend itself, and she still does. She would never, ever side with a terrorist group. Of course not. Neither would I. She's unwavering in that regard. But she knows the ground is shifting.
There's a contingent of people who are worried that they're losing me. And I've said that you're not losing. I'm not on Hamas's side.
No, God, no. Nobody's on Hamas's side.
But it's been a while now that this has been going on.
Right.
And we're getting more involved with the Iranian bombing and so on.
Sure.
And my own feelings are, I'm looking at Israel in a different way right now than I was on 10/8, that's for sure, of 23.
Right.
And I can feel the pressure being slightly ratcheted up, like you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to. And I can see people like you, like Tucker, who I know Tucker. I've known him for years. And I've seen you in your early career. I know you have nothing against Israel.
Megyn Kelly is not alone. The fact is many, many people in the MAGA movement are becoming more suspicious of the Israeli government. That does not mean they are anti-Israel. It certainly doesn't mean they're anti-Semitic. If they are anti-Semitic, they have no business in the conservative movement. What it means is that Israel has a slow-rolling PR crisis on its hands. For decades, Israel has enjoyed unqualified support from Republicans and Democrats, and in exchange, the President of the United States was able to exercise some power over the Israeli government's actions in the Middle East. Presidents from Reagan to Bush to Clinton to Obama got to say, okay, enough's enough, we aren't getting dragged into World War III. But under the Biden administration, that changed, as President Biden basically let Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu do whatever he wanted in Gaza as a result of October 7th. Maybe Joe Biden didn't even know what was going on. Now, even as that ultimately meant the deaths of tens of thousands of innocent people and the utter destruction of Gaza and the starvation of women and children, Israel's backers are now forced to present deeply uncomfortable arguments out of, well, such and such child's not really starving, they were already very sick. Look, these are not winning arguments, I'm sorry, and MAGA is noticing. I've certainly noticed it, and I've been defending Israel's right to defeat the terrorist group Hamas for years, including on this program. I've been uncompromising on this. If you've been watching for years, you know. But like Megyn Kelly and like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I cannot defend an unending campaign that kills tens of thousands of children. I can't defend a foreign lobbying group sidestepping requirements that every other foreign government has to follow, i.e. sign up under FARA. And I've never defended, ever, the aid money we send to Israel. Israel's a rich country with lower debt to GDP ratio than the U.S. Let them buy our weapons with their own money. That's fine. Which brings me to my last point. There are certainly elements of MAGA that want to back aid and support to Israel no matter what. Fine. I retweeted the MTG Kelly interview on X, and Laura Loomer replied to me, MTG doesn't speak for MAGA. That's true, she doesn't speak for everyone, but young, online, right-leaning MAGA folks are resentful of how much money we send to Israel. It's just a fact. If Israel wants to restore its good standing with the America First crowd, they don't necessarily have to compromise their policies, but they should at least consider ending their reliance on our aid. I'm now hearing this even from some very pro-Israel people, that they think the support that they're getting from the U.S. is damaging the country in the eyes of young conservatives who are not for foreign aid of any kind. Again, it's not specific to Israel. Right. It's not a special beef with Israel. I wanted to cancel most of what USAID was doing as well. So consistent with that, they can do what they want to do. They should take out a terrorist organization, but we don't need to be paying for it, is, I think, a very easy, solid compromise that would restore the Israeli government's credibility in the eyes of the America First movement, and that's what MTG and Megyn Kelly are talking about. I
actually like that you brought up Biden in this. I usually say don't bring up Biden, but I think in this instance, there's a conversation to be had about the 23 or almost 2 years of the war happening between Hamas and Israel, and knowing that the strategies for almost both presidents were largely the same and similar. And to a lot of people outside looking in who all agreed that Israel had the right to defend itself, that this is not a consistent strategy that should be Israel kind of do whatever it wants. And so when people are looking at foreign policy and trying to differentiate between two distinct administrations, they can't really tell the difference, because it seems like there has been an immediate damning of anyone that says anything in contradiction of Netanyahu, which has always been my stance, that is not anti-Semitic. He's a leader. He can be wrong. He can have overreach. He can overstep. And also it can be true that Hamas is a terrorist organization that uses civilians inappropriately and put their lives at risk. But I think when you have, 2.3 million people that are starving and aid that's been cut off consistently at different points for almost 2 years, you have to understand that there are humans there, and then there are war crimes, and we operate at an international level with the rest of the world where history's watching, and how we handle this is going to be automatically watching. And the U.S. has made mistakes. The argument has been, well, no one said anything when the U.S. was doing all this and that after decided to go into wars. We did a lot of egregious stuff. So I understand from the pedestal with which a lot of leaders are speaking, but I just think as a regular civilian and just seeing people, to be honest, we have protests happening right outside of our building about this very topic. And I think that
deeply misguided protests, because those protesters are like shaming the media for not covering this. How frequently do I talk about this and actually criticize the Israeli government and say that what's happening in Gaza needs to end? So those protesters out there who bang on their ridiculous drums and disrupt the operations in this building should get a clue about what we're actually talking about. They have no idea what they're talking about, but that's typical of totally misguided hippie left protesters.
We'll talk about more of this. Robby went way left. Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth went on a field trip to Union Station yesterday. That's right nearby us. Hear all about their visit next. We'll be right back. Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth received a not-so-warm welcome visiting National Guard service members yesterday at Union Station in D.C. They were met with a myriad of boos and heckling. Let's just take a look. Wow. Vance was also asked if the administration will extend the National Guard's deployment in Washington, D.C. past the current 30 days and if he thinks Congress will cooperate. Let's hear his response.
We'll ultimately let the President of the United States determine where we are after 30 days of this emergency order. I think that we're going to make a lot of progress over the next 20 days. I think that we're 9 days into this thing. But if the President of the United States thinks that he has to extend this order to ensure that people have access to public safety, then that's exactly what he'll do.
Meanwhile, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller also joined the pair on their visit. He's garnering a lot of views on social media for this moment. Let's watch.
All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of the city and never have been.
You tell him.
Well, first of all, that's no. You can't just say, "Oh, they somebody flew here or drove here just to do this." Like people live here. DC is one of the most diverse cities.
Radar, I also hate elderly white hippies.
Yes, but it's like, come on. These protesters have been out there consistently. They need to live out here at this point if they're not real protesters because they've spent a lot of time.
Jobs, hippie. I don't like protesters even when I agree with what they're protesting for.
Well, you like free speech, so we know that that's just going to stand, right? They should be outside.
Shot.
Look, I'm not surprised that they got met with boos. I haven't met a lot of people that enjoy federal authorities here. Now, while you say, yes, I enjoy being protected and I would like local law enforcement to be bolstered and I want to feel safe in my neighborhood, that's a different feeling than wanting military trucks driving around the street and just people in army uniforms just standing around. Like, it just presents a feeling that people maybe didn't want a militarization in their city. And I think that's fair. And just going back to the beginning of why we're here and why we couldn't have worked with local leaders to get this done effectively without the entire military. No, we're not. We're forcing the federal government inside of DC and militarizing it when they could have worked with local leaders to figure out how to actually implement long-term solutions like community policing, which would have made the police more attached and have an understanding about the community instead of just being from anywhere in the country and just coming here and trying to police places like the 7th and 8th Ward, which I'm just learning about because I'm new to DC, but it's mostly people of color. And you talk about some of those young kids who are like outside and spending a lot of time with their friends late night. Some of them might be committing crimes, but some of them probably just need youth programs so that they can get off the street, because unfortunately sometimes the parents are working late and don't have the capacity to watch their kids until, let's say, 11 p.m. when they get home. So these things could all be rectified if real solutions were put in place to kind of like house homeless folks and come up with community programs and put local programs in place so that kids can have activities to do or be tired by 11 p.m.
You know who shut down the community programs?
COVID.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not
Democrats.
who. COVID. Dr. Fauci, who President Trump put in position to do things like that and make those calls. Yes, Trump put him in position. And let me just say, as DC was starting to clean up since COVID and do some of these things, like regulate guns more, like put in community programs, crime dropped. No matter if you want to believe the statistics or not, crime has dropped. And that's because of the Secure DC Act that Muriel Bowser signed into law last year.
Yeah,
it's been effective.
It dropped from third world hellhole to
and in COVID, crime increased. So third world, whatever you just called it, decreased across the country.
We have worse crime. Okay, I don't have the argument about how we agree crime came down. That's a good thing. The baseline is
because
still
of what
too bad.
Democratic leadership did in DC, specifically Muriel Bowser being a champion of this Secure DC Act, and so that's why crime went down. So maybe if he would have bolstered up what she was already trying to do, rather than overstep and put federal authorities in places where Republicans generally say they don't want them, which is local territories. I just don't understand.
Okay. I want to talk about Union Station specifically, however.
Fine.
Union Station is a building I've spent a lot of time in. I go to New York quite frequently. I'm actually doing so today as soon as we finish taping the show. Union Station used to be a building. In fact, when I came to DC on field trips in the 8th grade, you could spend time in Union Station. That was a long time ago. Union Station, beautiful building. It's not like, New York's new train hall, Moynihan Hall is pretty nice, but the existing one is like the most depressing, disgusting underground complex ever. Union Station is beautiful, Greco-Roman architecture, had all these nice shops, really nice building that was ruined, was overtaken by criminal, insane, homeless people. Seriously, this happened.
All
the shops.
The people are criminal, homeless, and insane. They're all
a variety of all the same.
Okay.
Variety. I mean, all the shops there closed, not all at once, not overnight, but over time, because the customers were constantly being harassed, heckled. This has happened to me by homeless people who live there, by mentally ill people, soiling themselves in public, just gross stuff. And then a tent city formed during COVID on the front lawn. This is all this is responsibility of the Parks Department that is supposed to run that land. It is the federal government supposed to administer it.
Okay.
So I don't want fascism. I don't love the idea of just police being everywhere. I don't want to show papers. I don't think police being stationed everywhere is a long-term solution for things like the metro, for instance. A lot of the time we see videos now that the police are just standing around on the metro. It doesn't seem like good use of their time, frankly. But Union Station needed to be brought under control so it can flourish, so businesses can reopen there. And I'm sorry, I don't care what that takes, but if that takes a little bit more aggressive policing, that's what it takes.
And I think we agree that D.C. should be safer. This is my new home. Happy for it to be safer. I think we agree that Union Station is a beautiful building and should operate in the way that you experienced it in 8th grade. But what I disagree about is the fact that we should have the federal government just completely disregarding what a local leader like Muriel Bowser may or may not have wanted, in the same way that Trump...
What she wants is 800 more police officers.
Okay, so
then
he could have had a sit-down conversation and then publicize that like he did with Netanyahu last Friday. He could have sat down with Muriel Bowser, put a camera on them, and decided how they're going to continue to secure D.C. and put funds in place to allow local leaders to flourish in the way that we've elected them to do, instead of just deciding to do something and then her getting caught off guard and trying to manage how she speaks to Charlemagne, understanding that everybody's looking at her critically who are in different communities, and then other people are like, oh, we're happy to have this. It's chaos. It didn't need to be this way. It could have been something situated and solved. And I know that D.C. wants to bring crime down, but also on the list of priorities of how crazy and hectic and crime-ridden cities are across America, D.C. is not even on the top 10. So it's just kind of like, okay, it's not on the top 10. My point is that we could have started anywhere if we were really trying to crack down on crime and be the true Republican Party of Reagan.
In a city
You're starting
that has
with D.C.
more federal
as an
involvement.
antagonist because of the issue that happened to the Doge employee, which I'm very sad and sorry about. Obviously, it's a terrible thing that happened, but it does not mean that federal enforcement needs to come in and sweep the city. That's one thing does not connect to the other. A Doge employee gets hurt, and so now we need to send troops in. It's just this overreaction for something that could be handled properly with long conversations and long term, honestly, with working with Muriel Bowser, as opposed to a 30-day solution that Congress may or may not continue to agree upon if it should go forward.
Well, I don't know if it should go forward or not. I don't love everything the police are doing here, certainly. Sometimes it feels like a stunt, what neighborhoods they're in. Well, we need more homicide cases being solved, but their presence is going to deter crime, the kind of crime we've been experiencing for the last couple of weeks of these gangs of teenagers I keep referring to, which they're out there. They need to be sent home or sent to community programs. Fine, great. Give me some community programs.
Thank you. I would love community programs. I would love mental health and addiction treatment. I would love all these things. I would love, more space to open up in homeless shelters so that we can not just push people to Virginia and Maryland. Many long-term solutions.
But you got to actually keep them in homeless shelters. The problem is they leave the homeless.
But right now we're just taking a broom and pushing them to the next closest state.
We don't have time to get into how much money we spend on providing housing for the homeless in D.C. If it was a lack of money, I don't think anyone could possibly look at the amount of money and say it was a lack of money, but we'll have to debate that at a later junction. Right now, a new report is saying that Elon Musk's political plans might be changing again. Is this good news for the Republican Party? We'll talk about it after a quick break. More Rising right after this. If you were gearing up to vote for Musk's third party in the future, that might not be a possibility. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Elon Musk is quietly pumping the brakes on that plan for a third party. Sources had told the Wall Street Journal that he wants to focus on his companies and doesn't want to get on any Republicans' bad sides, wants to maintain ties with Vice President J.D. Vance.
Aw, Musk already responding to this report, posting on X, quote, "Nothing the Wall Street Journal says should ever be thought of as true." Wow. During an interview this week, Vance giving some advice to Musk regarding his potential political future. Take a look.
If he doesn't like things the Republican Party is doing, my advice to Elon would be try to fix the Republican Party. Try to push it in your own way. Disagree with me all you want. Disagree with the President of the United States, but don't pretend that you can make a big difference with a third party. I think Elon would make a much bigger difference if he stayed loyal to President Trump's Republican Party. And if he had disagreements, express those disagreements from the inside as opposed to from the outside.
Of course, Musk was one of the Republicans' biggest donors during the 2024 election and before June falling out, one of President Trump's closest advisors. He's since publicly criticized some of Trump's economic initiatives as well as other Republican efforts.
I hear Vance talking tough in that interview, saying, oh, yeah, he might as well come back. because he knows if Elon Musk moves forward and continues to push forward, I mean, he has a lot in common with Ross Perot, both tech rich people in that industry who can make dents possibly with their campaign. In 1992, Ross Perot got 19% of the vote, which obviously affects the election deeply. Even a smaller percentage, like we talked about yesterday, could affect the election. But even if Elon Musk comes close to what Ross Perot did in the 90s and gets 10% of the vote, he would completely jack up the Republican voting for whomever was going to be president. And Vance knows that, Elon Musk knows that. And so technically Elon Musk still has the power. And Vance is like, just come on, just, you know, you don't want to be a Democrat. And he may not, but he also knows how much power he has and how much money he used to propel Trump's campaign, which ultimately helped Trump accomplish what he needed to, which is just get in front of enough people, spend the money how he wanted to on his campaign. And Vance technically needs that money to succeed as well as Trump because he doesn't have Trump's name, which got him through the furthest in the polls.
Yeah, it's obvious what's going on here. Vance wants to retain Elon Musk as a supporter for his own presidential run. I think he is extraordinarily likely to succeed at that. I think it would not be surprising to me at all if Elon Musk's interest in a third party fades, because I say this as a pretty reliable third party voter, being involved in a third party is difficult because the incentive structure is designed, the whole system is designed to benefit the two parties. It's the one thing they can agree on, to rig the game in their favor. Getting ballot access for a third party is difficult. Recruiting quality candidates is difficult. Agreeing on an agenda is difficult because we're a very polarized society, and people, for better or worse, tend to fit pretty neatly into MAGA, Republican, conservative, right-wing, or left, liberal, progressive, Democrat. Like, they're pretty coherently worked out ideologies at this point. Now, I still think they're inconsistent. I think it's better to have more personal freedom, cultural freedom, more live and let live, leave me alone, kind of the ethos of what was at one point at least cultural liberalism, although now I have so many problems with wokeness, I'm not even sure that's true. I'm a cultural moderate, I guess. And then the low tax, low regulation, leave me alone financially of the Republican Party, at least the older Republican Party. Yeah, well, everyone just wants to be left alone.
But in this situation, I feel quickly that Elon Musk has the power because he's like, I have $300 million for you or not for you. And so you need to make sure you guys are fiscal conservatives like you said you wanted to be. And so I think before he agrees to give Vance anything, Vance needs to agree on an agenda that he likes.
Yes, I think Elon is a good, his influence is on the Republican Party in a direction I want. So I hope he withholds any financial help until he gets some economic promises.
Now, Gavin Newsom is getting pretty good at getting under Trump's skin. Why he says it's the method behind the madness. Let's check that out on my lens coming up next.
Welcome back to Rising. Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
I've got a lot to say as usual. So nobody's getting under MAGA's skin quite like California Governor Gavin Newsom. And it's not just comical, it's actually effective. Every cable news channel is talking about him, weekly if not daily. Newsom, who many believe is a likely contender for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2028, has taken a page straight from Donald Trump's playbook. He's leaning into Trump's bombastic posting style and serving it back to him stunt for stunt. I mean, his trolling includes a Photoshop image of Mount Rushmore with his face on it, a mock-up of himself as a king on the cover of Time magazine, and even an AI-generated image of Newsom surrounded by Tucker Carlson, the late Hulk Hogan, and Kid Rock, before writing in all caps that he actually hates Kid Rock. It sounds silly, and that's the point. The deja vu effect is meant to hold a mirror up to the Trump world, showing Republicans exactly how absurd their tactics look from the outside in. And let's be honest, I think it's working. The numbers back it up. CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enton, and also Robby's favorite pollster, says the X account for Newsom's press office has seen a 450% increase in followers since June. Google searches for Newsom, well, those are up 1,300% since June, and 500% just since August 1st. Those are the kinds of surges you don't see without some traction. And here's the deeper story behind the strategy. In a recent interview with Fox 11 Los Angeles, Newsom explained the moment he decided to put his foot down against Trump.
I think it connects here in LA and the fires. And how he was completely misrepresenting the facts, misinformation, disinformation. Elon Musk was piling on as well.
You were really angry that he spoke to you then. And I've never seen you angrier than that.
Yeah, because I've never seen anything like it. In the middle of emergency, all the lies, all the misrepresentations, all the untruths, and they became gospel and they were spread around the world. And it was a big wake-up call. And we got back on our feet and we got back on the offense.
And he wasn't done there.
And then when the National Guard was federalized, what the hell is going on? You saw ICE out here today. You know what that is? That is a preview for things to come. Mark my word. I said this a couple months ago with the National Guard. I said that was a preview for the rest of the country. That's exactly what happened in Washington, D.C. That's going to continue to happen across this country unless we're successful. Yes, I've changed. The facts have changed. We need to change. And we need to stand up to this authoritarian.
Now, people can argue that Newsom is lowering himself by mocking the president, but one thing you can't deny is that it's been effective. And that's not just Democrats talking. Even Steve Bannon is giving him credit. Bannon told Politico, quote, "If you look at the Democratic Party, he's at least getting up there, and he's trying to intimidate a Trumpian vision of fighting," right? He looks like the only person in the Democratic Party who's organizing a fight they can feel that they actually can win. He went on to say, quote, "People in the MAGA movement and the America First movement should start paying attention to this because it's not going to go anywhere. They're only going to get more intense." So here's the thesis. Gavin Newsom isn't just trolling Donald Trump. He's stress testing a strategy. And the numbers, the buzz, and even Trump's allies all suggest that it's working. For years, Democrats have struggled to figure out how to fight Trump on his own turf. Newsom might have just cracked the code.
Think so, hey?
Yes, gruesome Newsom, like you say.
Look.
Don't sigh. Don't sigh. It's funny.
He's putting his name in. No, it's not funny.
What are you saying?
It's not
People are
taco
laughing.
fun.
It's
You
taco
laugh.
funny.
I don't mean this as a criticism. You laugh
At
very
everything?
easily.
No,
you
I
are
am-
a fun-filled, joyous person. My heart and soul are black and dark and angry.
I am easily tickled, but taco was funny. After airing it several times on our show, I finally laughed because even, Jeanine Pirro was behind Trump laughing when it first came out and a reporter asked about taco. So why can't I laugh and Jeanine Pirro on his staff can
You
laugh?
are allowed to laugh. Gavin Newsom is getting himself a lot of attention, and getting yourself attention does help you. It's a name recognition game. I always say this, that people, or pundits especially, because we pundits are paying such close attention to everyone in politics at all times, we often miss the fact that people who are not paid to consume political content constantly, don't know all of these characters as intricately as well as we do.
Right.
In the same way that I don't know, how to perform brain surgery because it's not my job. Brain surgeons know how to do that. I follow sports not very closely at all. I don't know all the people in sports the way sports commentators do. It's that kind of effect. So name recognition does really help you because a lot of the voters don't have time to pay as close attention to politics. God bless them. Some days I wish I was one of them. So Gavin Newsom getting his name out there, being constantly covered in the news for these antics, I think will certainly help him.
And also help the Democratic
help
Party
him get the nomination.
find a response to Trump. There has been a criticism outside of connect back with the everyday working American, connect back with your constituents, which people felt that they've been out of touch. Also, do something has been the other criticism. Say something, respond. Why would you sit back for years and not codify Roe v. Wade, but then whine and complain
He's doing things. He's tweeting.
Well, no, he actually is pushing forward a vote on redistricting, unlike your boys in Texas who are just pushing it down the pike without asking the voters what they want. He actually is asking people in California, would you like to move forward with these new maps, and allowing them to put it on the ballot on November 4th. He's going about it, the way that we want our government to be run, which is of the people, for the people, and not just of whatever political party thinks it suits them best to get 5 seats in order to win the midterm because policies won't allow you to win them.
No.
See, you do this every time. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she's like, sometimes Robby just is like, I don't have to say that. You can't tell me to do that. That's not a legitimate
You can't tell me what to do.
You have to respond here. What say you? Is Newsom not effective? I brought up Enton on purpose to bring up the fact that his Harry Enton on purpose to bring up the fact that his numbers are growing so rapidly
I can see that. He might very well be the next Democratic nominee. I think he's in the top 3 most likely ones for sure.
Effective communication style. If you like Trump's, you would compare both of those.
I'm not. I'm not like a warped partisan Republican.
Fighting fire with
Everything
fire.
Democrats do is, especially in terms of political tactics, I still dislike his policies intensely. I would not want to live in a state that is governed by him. God forbid I have to live in a country that is run by him. That would be a cruel fate. But for all I know, that's the fate I will suffer in 2028.
Well, you know, it's so crazy. We're all okay. And a lot of people felt the same way that you feel about living under anything that Newsom does. The same way if President Trump won a second term. And look, we are surviving.
All I know,
look at us.
I guess
except we just have federal authorities all over D.C. But aside from that,
shut down all of the schools, lock us in our homes, force us to wear. He would outsource governance to the most far left radical health department, and then he would go get dinner at the French Laundry.
You know what? A lot of things happened during the pandemic that caused people to get in a little bit of a spiral, get obsessive about it because we had so much time. And I think that you are a little bit too closely connected to this COVID story. You have to let it go. We're 5 years out. You know, you're alive. You're lucky to be here.
I will never.
So many people didn't have the opportunity to just continue breathing. You are alive and healthy and well. You are living a great life. And so you cannot just worry about how you can blame Dr. Fauci every day that you have this mask off your face. You have to free yourself from that.
That's fine. I'm a single issue voter, COVID. I will vote only and on the basis of which candidate I think would be less likely to do all of those horrible things again if a pandemic hit us.
A pandemic happens once every how often? Like, it was a once in a lifetime situation. It's not going to happen again. I know, but if you look at history, like Spanish flu, if you look at historians, like, well, this was probably expected to come. Like, usually big waves, like pandemics,
Dr. Fauci is doing his best
happen.
to make sure another one happens very soon. So I'm not going to...
You're going down conspiracy theory rabbit hole. I want to talk facts, Robby. Okay. Dr. Fauci is not trying to make another pandemic happen.
Well,
nobody wants that to happen.
We're having
again.
a guest later today, and we'll talk about it.
It's going to be 2 against 1
for how this all went down.
Fine.
Coming up, a new post from Trump takes aim at the Smithsonian, and it's sparked debate over how our museums should depict American history. We have more on that next. Stay with us.
Since taking office in January, we've seen President Trump target several institutions that he disagrees with, including colleges, universities, and even law firms. Now it appears his administration is setting its sights on the Smithsonian museums here in D.C.
In a post on Truth Social, Trump took issue with the Smithsonian, saying in part, quote, "Everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been."
Trump went on to say that he's instructed his attorneys to review the museum, starting the same process that was done at universities earlier this year. So this could include changing or replacing exhibits that are deemed too divisive, according to a letter sent by White House officials. Now, reactions to Trump's message have been pouring in. Congressman Jim McGovern called it un-American, saying, quote, "Anyone who thinks there's anything good about enslaving human beings has no business running any country." And then there's commentator Brian Tyler Cohen, who said, quote, "Trump is mad that the Smithsonian is talking about how bad slavery was. That's where we're at."
But naturally, there are others agreeing with Trump's perspective that the museums should be more positive. Charlie Kirk shared his thoughts, writing in part, quote, "Americans have so much to be proud of. This is the greatest republic on the planet. The Smithsonian, the national museum system of our capital city, should reflect our national greatness." And columnist Scott Jennings saying, "It's true that slavery is one of the darkest chapters of American history, but it's also true that lots of brave Americans fought a war to end it. The question President Trump is asking is, are we going to define our country based on our worst moments or our best moments?"
You know, America seems like one of the places that I've been that really has and I travel a lot because I literally have a travel show that has a problem like atoning or fully dealing with its past. And I think that by building the African American History and Culture Museum, there was an actual attempt to really show people not only the resilience and all the things that he wants to talk about of success, but also you literally journey through the museum and understand the implications and impacts you feel, you touch, you experience, what slavery could have been like from a viewership perspective to see how horrid it was, and you go upstairs as things get more resilient and actually experience it. So trying to tear that down seems odd to me, especially when it's not overemphasizing slavery. It's literally spending the amount of emphasis that covers the amount of time and the amount of, ways that it contributed to the way that America was fundamentally built and actually is today. Like, you can't disregard what happened and disregard how it directly connects with what still happens today. Well, I mean, cotton was picked, land was made, people were made rich off of slave. Like, this is all stuff that...
Okay, but that's true of every civilization that has ever existed.
But
so I think
America can
why do we have to... look, slavery, the dark chapters in American history should be taught and recognized, and are. I would challenge you on the notion that we have difficulty atoning for our past. I mean, schools teach American history. In fact, I was discussing this with Niall the other day. My problem with teaching American history is we don't teach anything recent because it starts in the same place, and now more history is developing as time goes on. And the Civil War period is covered in I can't vouch for every single school in America, obviously, but is part of the curriculum in all school districts. It is exhaustively covered, the horror of slavery and then the horror of the Civil War and how many people died as an effort to end it. So I just don't.
Well, I don't think that I mean in schools, literally. I mean adults
America.
trying to pretend like when people say blanket statements like, oh, what does that have to do with me or slavery? Like even the Jillian Michaels thing. I heard her whole interview on CNN, if you guys had watched her, and she talked a little bit about why she like statistics that make no sense. Like only 2% of people were slave owners at the time. Well, she's not accounting for the fact that children, multiple of them, and wives were not counted in that process. So if you had a home that benefited off of slave owners, or if you had an adjacency like a family member or a cousin that also used your slaves when you needed them, these are all benefiting off slave-free labor and things that were experienced in our society. And so when you have that mentality and adults that have platforms that say things like, it doesn't affect society in any way, or we need to move past this, it's really just not acknowledging that there's two ways to have the full conversation, is really understanding the history and then seeing where we are and accepting and embracing the accomplishments, celebrating the accomplishments, but also saying we have a long stretch of work to do in order to continue to move forward.
I agree with all that, but some people on the left act as if America, as the United States, is the only country or the only civilization of which slavery was an aspect. And again, that is not true. Every empire, every civilization from Asia to the Middle East to Africa to Europe to America to South America took slaves as prisoners of war, enslaved, raped, killed, pillaged, and then used slave labor. Like, that is just true. What is
I understand the history of the world, but in somebody who's speaking from an America First perspective all the time, I'm talking about our country. I'm talking about in 2017, Donald Trump went to go visit the same museum that he's criticizing. And these are quotes, because I remember that visit, and it was so profound because he left right after accepting his position in office and saying he was, quote, deeply proud about the, quote, unbreakable American spirit. He was so happy to be part of this meaningful reminder and wish he could have spent all day there understanding the horrors of what our society has experienced. So how do you go from 2017 to having all this admiration for what was built and what was examined through your personal tour of this same museum, but then in 2025, like, did you just all of a sudden just forget that you had these thoughts and profound feelings, and now you want to get rid of some of the installations that you haven't seen in years, probably, because all of a sudden it's too woke? Like, what's woke about slavery? It's
nobody had a problem. Let's be clear. Nobody had a problem with the African American History Museum until their website had that aspects of white supremacy,
which they apologized for. So and they took down.
And I'm glad they did that. And again, I have no problem, nor do I, even if I did have some problem with the museum, I would not think the federal government should waste time trying. I don't want the government to dictate the exhibits at the museum. Frankly, I would just privatize all the museums, and then they can do whatever they want and find their own.
You always say that. Take all the federal money out of it.
But federal money out of everything, and then you have it. Then it's neat and clean, and then have your museum however you want.
And history is not based off of whatever Trump thinks is too inappropriate or whatever Biden thinks is not enough information about the horrors.
The left wants to
we shouldn't. No, the Smithsonian was created by it. No. Smithsonian was created independently to showcase actual facts in history, which it does. I've been there multiple times to that specific museum, and it does an amazing job of detailing the history of our country, which is just traumatic sometimes, but also brilliant sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I think that no politician should get that deeply involved with their hand in weaving it's like no politician should get deeply involved in weaving what a textbook should look like. No politician should get deeply involved in weaving what museums should look like. They should allow the millions of people that come here and learn about the horrors and the brilliancy of our country to continue to do that amongst all these free museums in DC and go and experience these things. I mean, every Sunday you can walk around this beautiful city and really have the best time of your lives. For somebody like me with children that can learn, for people international that don't really understand the full capacity of our country, they can learn and really experience and understand and start from a place of understanding rather than a start from criticism and saying, oh, you're too this, you're too that. Like, maybe if you just understood the history, then you just have more empathy for many of the things that have come from slavery, like systemic things that we're still working on fixing in our society.
Yeah, we can talk about it, and we do talk about it. Again, it is the left has this wrong idea that it's not acknowledged, or we talk about it a lot, as we should. It was something in our somewhat recent history that was overcome here as it was overcome everywhere else across the globe. And we fought a really bloody war that tons and tons of people died in, that the whole South burned to end. And so we conquered that evil. And again, that's something that is taught and should be taught. And I take umbrage sometimes at the left pretending like there's never been a worse and more evil. I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm recalling past arguments I've had with people who are, I think, further to the left than you are, who are just like, America is the great Satan.
I mean, there's always more work to be done, though. I don't like to compare it to other countries, because in any other argument, you don't want to compare America to other countries. Right. We're just not them.
Are those other countries doing a lot of time reflecting on all the evil things they did?
Well, actually, yeah, I spent a lot of time in South Africa, and the way that they're atoning for apartheid, which is way more recent in the 90s, is much more, let's discuss it, let's bring it to the forefront. We understand how egregious it was. And the conversation is welcome rather than shunned. Like, all right, we talked about this already. And I'm not talking about in textbooks. I'm talking about from their leadership, from the highest authorities there. Like, the conversation is an open book of like, yeah, this was terrible. All these things were attached to it. In fact, our World of Travel season 2 is about that largely, about how they dealt with some of their transgressions and how they're moving forward by trying to create space and provide land for people that probably own the land prior to get stolen from them, because of the color of their skin. So there's so much to discuss here and unpack. I know we only have a little bit of time, but I think yes, other countries are doing it better than us. Yes.
Up next, Governor Gavin Newsom is beefing with a retail company. We'll be right back after this. The executive chairman of retailer Bed Bath & Beyond is now beefing with California Governor Gavin Newsom.
So 2 years ago, the chain filed for bankruptcy and closed hundreds of stores around the country, but now they're planning a big return.
Executive Chair Marcus Lemonis, however, said they're going to skip over opening a store in California. Lemonis explained on an X quote, "This isn't about politics, it's about reality. California's system makes it nearly impossible for businesses to succeed, and I wouldn't put our company, our employees, and our customers in that position." Lemonis emphasized that Bed Bath & Beyond will still serve Californians via the company's website.
Newsom, however, didn't hesitate in punching back. He wrote on X, quote, "The company that already went bankrupt and closed every store across the country 2 years ago? Okay." Newsom's press office account also got in on the action, writing, "After their bankruptcy and closure of every store, like most Americans, we thought Bed Bath & Beyond no longer existed. We wish them well in their efforts to become relevant again as they try to open a second store."
Lemonis went on Fox News last night to respond to Newsom. Let's listen.
I know that Bed Bath went out of business a few years ago. Now we're trying to make a comeback, and I would think that a governor would want to attract investment, attract capital into the state. In fact, he did the opposite. He rejected it.
Yeah, you can't, it's really hard to open a business in a state run by business-hating liberals who want to regulate and restrict and tax and do environmental impact reports every time you want to, if you want to like move a chair from there to there, you got to get permission to do that. Doesn't work. It's not a way to run a state. And so I'm not surprised that they're going to skip out opening a store there. I loved going to Bed Bath & Beyond as a kid, I should say. They had that's the mattress store, right? Didn't they have tons?
No, they had tons of, they had like sheets and bedding and toys.
But they had like what your room could look like.
Oh, yes, they used to show you different, for babies, I think. I don't know if they had full rooms in there.
No, I feel like
I went in there recently a lot because I had a kid. And
am I remembering some other store? I felt like the one I went to.
Right in the comments.
It was a bunch of rooms with like this one was Western style, this one was aquarium style, this one was.
No, that's not Bed Bath & Beyond.
Mattress Warehouse?
Yeah, maybe. That's a different store that's still in business.
I don't know. All right,
so look, of course, is the CEO's name Lemonis, the Bed Bath & Beyond CEO? So of course he's upset. Like
talk at me while
their stores closed down. So he obviously has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because no one wants that for their businesses. And so I think that naturally he is a little bit cranky, and he's taking that out on Governor Gavin Newsom for absolutely no reason. Like in particular, what he's taking
for no reason because it's California's business environment.
Well, what they do is protect workers. So what he's taking aim at is the fact that California has raised the minimum wage and requiring certain people to get paid, let's say like about $20 an hour. Do you understand how much California costs? And so do you understand what the point of unions and protecting workers? Like, why are you against the worker? You should ask less about the billion-dollar company, Bed Bath & Beyond, why they can't pay people $20 an hour to sit there all day for 8 hours in this type of economic climate. What are you doing? Maybe you don't need 500 stores. Maybe you're not selling that much material. Maybe you should try the digital space since it's 2025.
Wow,
having a couple brick and mortars
advertisement
and actually
to
have
starting a
employees
business
in there.
California. Do you really need a store?
Yeah, go online. Because,
I hope that's the
people
Democrats.
should still have jobs in California and work digitally and be on the website of Bed Bath & Beyond. Like, they can still work. Just like you said, AI is not the boogeyman. It's not going to take your jobs. Digital technology is not the boogeyman, right? These stores can still exist online. Somebody still needs to ship them. Someone still needs to work at the warehouse. Put your warehouse in California. Pay people $20 an hour. Stop being cheap. All right,
Yeah,
this is really
this
is the company's fault because they're just being they didn't manage their money properly. They went bankrupt, and now they don't want to pay people. So they're mad at Newsom. They're mad at Newsom because he's raised the minimum wage.
The market rate, like you can't just say you can't. People
at McDonald's are making $18 an hour. So
the company's going to pay you what your labor is worth, and if it's not worth that, then they're not going to pay it.
They should not be paying unlivable wages. Pay decent wages for the actual job. It doesn't have to be unlivable. It can literally. No one asked you to pay them $800,000 a year. No,
people get paid what their labor.
That's why we have minimum wage in this country. So it's not all. You have to start somewhere.
The real minimum wage is minimum wage. Because if they make you, if the government makes a company pay you more than your labor is worth, then they just don't employ you in the first place. That's the problem with minimum wage.
And you know what the real minimum wage is? Autonomy. You can go and find a different job then instead of work for the cheapskates that don't want to give you.
I mean, this is a real problem.
$20 an hour.
Businesses are going to say, "Oh, if I have to, I willingly employ you at this rate. Oh, but I have to pay you this rate. Never mind, computer can do it." That's going to be a huge problem.
It's not going to be. They're going to miss all the human touch that you need in order to sell that mattress in the wrong store that you were talking about. You're not going to. You need human connection. You need somebody walking you around.
I have this beautiful childhood memory of running around this maze-like set of rooms.
That's like IKEA.
It's more like IKEA.
Yeah,
it's not IKEA, but it's more like IKEA. Yeah. All right, I guess we should end it there. That does it for us on Rising Live. Thanks so much for watching, and look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hills YouTube channel so you never miss any content. For those of you who listen while on the go or whatever, we're now available lots of other places. See you later. See you tomorrow, in fact.